Hey guys, how's it going? How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Happy.
We are
I'm
doubling
doing great,
here.
man. I'm doing great. Today we have a very great day in Valencia, sadly. Although we have a very interesting day ahead of us because one, we have a very interesting guest today, and after the show we are going to a freestyle event to meet some rappers. So I'm very excited about that as well. So today we have a very special guest on the show, as I already told you. She was project manager and digital writer at Enemy. Then she went into the streaming business at 11/7 Music Group as a streaming executive and label coordinator. Then moved to Platform Records as a streaming lead and worked with releases such as Everyday Life by Coldplay, Dance Monkey by Tones and I, Song Machine Volume 1 by Gorillaz, and the latest Pink Pathways album, To Hell With It. And if that wasn't enough, right now she's the head of streaming of the UK office at Q&A Venice. And I'm pleased to say that I have the honor of working under her wing every day, and I cannot be more happy that she's here with us today. People, she's Beth Cherry.
Round of applause.
Confetti everywhere.
Wow. Wow. That was amazing. I wonder if maybe you could come with me to every room I walk in.
Absolutely. More than happy, Beth. More than happy.
That was lovely. Hi guys, I'm just so happy to be here. I think you guys are doing something really amazing and special, and yeah, honored to be a part of it.
Thank you for you having and taking the time and logging with us in the morning. So thank you for the time. So just to kick off today's episode and bring the context to the audience, just give us a little bit of explanation of what do you do at head of streaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting because if we look to maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, a little bit before that, this maybe wasn't particularly a job. It wasn't particularly a role in the industry. And to be honest, there was probably a bit of resistance from, the people before, like the digital age, that were maybe a bit worried about streaming, a bit scared about what the space was. And I think for me, being a music lover and growing up, trying to discover music, whether it was through, Tumblr or MySpace or whatever, streaming just became the next natural fit for me. So when I talk about streaming, I'm talking about anything that you can stream on your phone or on your desktop or in your ears. So if that's through Spotify or YouTube or Amazon or Apple, all of those different things are streaming, and I'm lucky enough to kind of be the head of that for certain labels. So at 11/7, I kind of came in, and it was a relatively small team, and we were in the rock space. So it became really interesting for me to understand, what streaming means for a rock audience. I then went to Parlophone, which is of Warner Music Group, and that was just massive mainstream culture. So it became really heavily about my relationship with streaming partners. And through that, it was understanding that they are in themselves their own kind of brands. They've got money and they've got teams and they've got marketing. And as you start working with developing and exciting acts, or even the most established in the world, it's just about creating really meaningful connections between the artist and the partners, and also the artist and the fans. So anything I can do that makes that is authentic to the artist and tells their story the best is what I do. I mean, to be honest, I'd say that being in streaming is being the number one fan of all of the acts that you look after, whether that's finding ways for people to discover them, whether that's, hyping them up in the room with the editors, whatever it is. But yeah, that's a really long-winded way of me telling you what my job is.
It's really interesting how, actually, because I didn't thought about it until you said right now that this job didn't really exist like 5 years ago. It's like super crazy, and it kind of shows how you need to always like keep on updating yourself when facing these kind of new possibilities in the industry. So I would love if you could break down now to narrow down some more of the process that happens like behind the scenes working at your role. If you could break down the process that happens when a release starts, when an artist or the label comes with a distributor and says like, hey, so here's the song, here's our plan. And then what happens until the song gets featured in editorial playlist, or even like as number one of those playlists, and being the cover of
Yes.
the rap caviar or something.
Yes, I mean, what a journey that is. And really, that is completely my job. And if the aim of the artist was to say, you know, I want to be on playlist covers, I want to be the person that people look to in this genre or in this mood, then that's my job. So, you know, there are so many things that the most exciting part, I think, as well about me moving over to Q&A and moving over to like Venice Music is that we're an independent company that has artists at the very forefront of everything we do. So I think really the number one thing is speaking with that artist, no matter what part of a record label or distribution company you're at, listening to that artist, listening to their story, why they wrote that record, what their goal is. And that gives you enough space to think about that journey, whether it's pre-release or post-release. And, you know, in this world, streaming also covers things like TikTok. I don't know if that's a word you guys love, but it's a brand that's been, you know, floating around the last few years and is really like making or breaking. So yeah, I mean, the journey really does depend on where the artist is at, what they want, and what they're trying to give. If you're working with a project like an EP or an album release, obviously there are going to be a lot of different steps that kind of go into the end goal. So if the end goal with a album is to be on the cover of, I don't know, the indie list in the UK, then what I would do is start with that very, very first single. What are the ways in which we can tell the story of her or him or them being an indie artist? How do we start that from the ground up? Sometimes there's a lot of work to do before you go to the editors. It's almost like being at a festival. This is how I feel like streaming is. And that people always think their end goal is, I want to be on the cover of a playlist or I want to be number one in a playlist. If we treat streaming like a festival, then, you know, your profiles, your activity, your content is your stage. Dress that however you want. This is your chance. Like, do that however you want. And if you do it right, the right people will start coming to your stage and discovering you and, you know, starting to tell other people, oh, you should come to the stage. Like, this is amazing over here. We're having a great time. And then from there, you start getting people like editors or people from different streaming services that have come to the party, come to your party and want to be invited. That's the goal for me. We should never be asking people to come in. They need to be wanting to come in. So whether that's creating, you know, a big thing on Spotify is to make sure that you're, as well as your monthly listeners, you know, your Spotify followers are very, very important. So is it about creating an incentive that, you know, shows your social following moving over to streaming? Is it, you know, that you're going to have a very visual album and you've decided that YouTube is the place for you and you're going to create, you know, 3 different visual components for every single? Or is it going to be a TikTok thing where you decide to release the audio from your album across all of TikTok and then let the fans decide what kind of release structure you're going to have? To be honest, my job is to just be very forward thinking, to keep very, very authentic and to do our best to not only trigger algorithms, but trigger interest, trigger organic interest, because that's the best way that you're going to get to that kind of space. Sometimes it's nice to have a little viral thing on TikTok, but I think the best thing for me is when you're very slow and steady. So sometimes that can also be like how you release music. We don't always need to go, you know, single, wait 6 weeks, another single, wait 6 weeks, album. It doesn't need to be like that. You could release the 30-second audio of every song you've ever written on TikTok. You could release, you know, a single every 2 weeks if you wanted to on certain streaming platforms, because algorithmically, like, it would work. So, you know, things are really new, and I feel like it's my job to be as at the forefront of streaming and digital and music discovery culture as possible. So yeah, it definitely varies, but I would say whatever feels the most authentic to you, find your place, find your tribe, keep building. And yeah, I promise you they'll come, and it'll feel so good, and it will feel so authentic. But yeah, or you get a viral TikTok hit. That works. That works too.
That's amazing, and I love the example you gave from like this analogy of seeing it as a festival, because I think it illustrates very well how it works. So I wanted to ask you, like, because regardless, it should be like it should work that way and flow in that way. It's always good to have like that little connection or be in the eye of the organizers, which in this case would be like the editorial playlist, the persons that do the playlist. So I would like to ask you, like, what do you think is the best way to start approaching these people and growing your network, like in that way?
I think that's a really good question. And it's something that my, artists I work with ask me all the time. And to be honest, I can talk from experience that, in that same analogy of feeling like a festival, we also need to not think of editors as these like gods of music that know everything and have their finger on everything. And, these are people. And, even when I'm like working with Jorge or things like this, we always have conversations that are like, an editor is just like us. So what is it about this artist that is exciting? What is interesting? What are we doing to bring people to that platform, to nurture a fan base on a certain platform as well? Because it's all very, very important. So I would say the best way, number one, never take away the importance of third-party playlisting. Very, very important. There's a reason why that bar is a source of streams on your Spotify for artists. It's very important. So I would say, what kind of playlists do you like? Who curates those? How can you get in contact with them? Is it about, networking at festivals, at live events, talking to people in the audience? Is it about finding, another part of that is it about using LinkedIn and things like that to find out who is in the editorial team? Maybe then going on their socials and thinking, oh, wow, that person's really like me, or oh, I think that person would really like my music because of, they went to this event or they did that. Maybe it's just about following that person and creating like a friendship. Maybe it's about, if your record is quite personal to you, is it about like gifting or a competition or personalized emails, things like that? Just bringing the humanity back to it is what I would say. When you're trying to connect with people, like we all need to connect with people, It just so happens that some of them can add you to a playlist that has 1 million followers.
Absolutely. And like, actually I wanted to take you like now to the other side of the coin, because like, as we are talking here, many artists and many whatever record labels see this playlist as like gods. Like if I manage to put my artist on, as we said, on Rap Caviar or whatever, they're gonna make it. So maybe I think, and we think that like there are many like fallacies are like around the playlisting thing and all this stuff. So we would like to ask you, like, what do you think are the main fallacies around this, and like what can like streaming realistically do to help artists' careers?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most exciting thing about streaming and playlisting and the rise of playlisting is that you don't necessarily need like a hit. Of course, that would be amazing. And then if you have a hit, you would end up in maybe the front cover of a Rap Caviar or on today's Top Hits or Hot Hits UK. But you don't need hits. You need to create music that connects with people. Playlist, again, look at playlist a bit like another mini stage or a like a gig. You're in a gig, you're all headlining together a show called Rap Caviar. Put your best foot forward and do your best to connect with the people that are going to listen to that. I would say the big playlists are like the dream, but I also like to think of playlisting as like an ecosystem, right? So you start off and you need to think about targets that are like that are obtainable as well. Don't set your sights for a cover of Rap Caviar when you've just started making kind of lo-fi hip hop beats, because you're not even getting ahead of yourself. You're just there's so many other wins. There's so many more wins that are going to do the best for you. Some of the best playlists in the world are the ones that have, 500K fans, because they're the people that every Friday, every time that's getting updated, they are getting a notification. They're listening to it. They're doing something with it. They're saving the songs to their profile. They're sharing with their friends. They're sharing on social media. They're writing reviews. So I find that actually it's good to sit back, look at what streaming services have to offer, and imagine your perfect route. The route would never be to go straight to a hot hit. That would be amazing, or a rap caviar. But starting with, for me, starting with, if you were in dance music, for example, before you even get to a New Music Friday, there's a playlist called Friday Crate Diggers. And it's very, very kind of underground. It's a very big playlist, but it's a playlist that dance fans love and DJs love. And people go through that like they're at a vinyl record store and they start looking for new things that they love. For me, that's a really great place for a dance track to start in terms of discovery. Much better than a New Music Friday in whatever location. From there, you want to start like looking at your data, looking at your third-party playlisting and seeing where that's starting to fit sonically. Are people gravitating towards this track and saving it to their libraries? Are they creating their own playlist with the song, meaning it's like a bit of a starter track? Like, what can you start using from the data, which tells you, factually what you think passionately about the track? From that, I would say, there are always ways of contacting streaming platforms, whether it's pitching, like actual submission forms, whether it's programs like Up Next with Deezer, or it's, any of those kind of programs. Or you just work it kind of the old school way of doing, ads and writing to the alias mails on the emails and things like that. From there, you start building your base. And I think, there are just certain journeys with every single playlist, which opens you up to a much wider audience. Also remember that some of these big playlists, although people are fans of the genre, they might be quite passive listeners, not necessarily engaged listeners that are deciding to be a fan of you. They might just be a fan of the playlist. So I would say that looking at the journey, finding the little playlists that kind of build up to the big ones is the best way to go. Never just have one goal. Try and find 5 or 6 playlists that you want to be in, not just the one.
Amazing.
And kind of, find your journey through there. That's what I would say, because you'll pick up the real fans throughout. And then when you're in the rap caviars, you'll have a brand new audience that you're being introduced to, but you've got this solid fan base of people that have come up through the ranks with you and are just like standing you. That's what we want, stands.
Word. And this morning I was reading a very interesting article about like how does a healthy artist profile looks like. And I wanted to ask you that, like, how does a healthy artist profile looks like, so that once you start having this editorial support, you don't over rely on the editorial support. You don't over rely on playlists.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would also say not only does every single streaming platform look at your profile when you are submitting or you are in conversation with them, but labels and distributors and A&Rs are looking at that too. Like I say, your streaming pages and your profiles are like your stage at a festival. So make them just as you as possible. Try and fill every single like blank that you can imagine. I almost imagine it like, I don't know if you guys remember MySpace, but yes. MySpace was life. MySpace was life. And it was you in like web form. You can do that on your streaming platform. I have a lovely little checklist that I keep that I like to send to all of my artists, but that is going from, make sure that you've got all your social links attached to everything, from TikTok to Twitter to Spotify to YouTube. I want to make sure that I can find you. I like to think of it all as a big circle. That is it. You are the circle. You want people to come into your orbit and just be so enamored and excited by the amount of content and how much they can find out about you. So connect everything. Everything needs to be connected. From there, I would say, like I say, there's such an importance in people. If you're growing your socials, grow your streaming platforms too. Turn those into subscribers on YouTube. Turn those people into followers on Spotify. Whether that's just asking people to do so, or whether that's, creating fan incentives or competitions or ad strategy, whatever that is. As soon as you get a playlist ad, maybe that's a social media advertising asset that you could use. I was added to Our Generation, which is a very, for new cool artists in the UK. If I'm seeing that as an ad, potentially I'm thinking, oh, wow, that's really cool. I love that playlist. Start thinking of all the ways you can really be you and tell your story. Create playlists on Spotify of your favorite music. Find ways to use Spotify Canvas to reveal artwork or reveal a discount code to merch. All of these different things you need to, these platforms are yours and yours to craft and yours to own. So have fun with it, it takes a while, but I think just be as up to date and as authentically you as possible. And that's the best you can do, really.
Yeah, I agree. I feel that the main thing that artists should focus is maybe having fun and be on building their careers, because at the end, all these kind of efforts and all these choices that they're making that you are telling us are going to end up in a result somehow, It's going to add up and add up and add up. And at the end, you are going to end up according to your efforts where you want it to be, We are super geek and super fans of data. And on data, you see all these efforts reflected on numbers, on KPIs. And in your role as head of streaming, I assume that you are really focused into data. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about how's your everyday relationship with it? If you check it every day, you wake up every morning and you have at 8 a.m. Okay, I'm going to check data. Or how do you determine or create the kind of data that you're looking for?
Yes, that's a great question. That's a really great question, because I think the word data is so wild because it sounds so boring, but it's amazing because you're basically seeing if things work. So you're seeing where your fans are in real time. You're able to test things and see the results of that. And for me, that just makes for a better second go, a more experience, So data is really, really important, not only to people like me when we're trying to develop acts, we're trying to feed information to partners, and we're also trying to tell the artist how they're doing. But it's also it should be really important to an artist, because that's a really great way of, sometimes I feel if you're making music in your bedroom and putting it out, it can feel like a really maybe lonely world. Data shows you who's out there, who's listening, where they are, and how much they love your stuff. I just think it's really, really amazing. I definitely think there are certain KPIs and things like that. Not only there are probably different versions of that. There should be a couple of different metrics that you are looking at as an artist. Like your Spotify followers, your monthly listeners, absolutely amazing, but that can go up and down, up and down. It's trying to create really concrete fan bases. Also remember that Spotify followers are people that will get your album or your release in their library as soon as it's out. That's really important. That's really tangible. That's the same with something like a pre-save or a pre-ad. Pre-ordering an album feels pretty old school, and but the kind of digital version of that is creating a buzz and a bit of excitement when you announce a record or an EP or a release, and allowing customers, because ultimately that's sometimes what that is, a customer or a fan, to actually do something in that moment. They're so excited. Oh my gosh, an EP's coming out. That's brilliant. I can't wait. Give someone something to do in that. So allow them to pre-save, allow them to pre-ad, allow them to follow you and subscribe to you. Get them ready for what's coming, because that just means more eyes and more ears on you in that first week. not only that, but algorithmically, you're just going to reach more people. That in itself will start triggering algorithms within Spotify. Because say you've had, say you're relatively small on streaming, you've got a pretty good fan base on Instagram, and you managed to get 5,000 pre-saves. That's amazing. That's really, really amazing. And that's something that I would tell streaming services about. That's something that I would be very prepared for in your week one of that release, is that you're going to have at least 5,000 people that are going to be listening to that record. That's better than a playlist ad. Like there are certain things that you can start doing metrically to help, and then also to inform other people. I would say for me and for in the streaming world, some really, really exciting metrics are, of course, listener growth. Streaming growth is amazing, and streaming growth is actually exciting when it starts to outweigh listeners. It means that your fans are listening to that song many, many, many times. That's really, really exciting. So there are little stories that you can start pulling out of data as well. For me, I love seeing listener growth, because that just tells me that that is the amount of ears. That's ears to me that are listening to this track. So seeing a really steady rise in that, or seeing rises as you're entered into certain playlists and then converting over into being a fan of you, an amazing metric to see what you are doing with editorial playlisting, or how your listeners and your fans are rising. I would say another amazing metric for me is I love looking at save rates, or repeat listens and things like that. So being able to have a save rate and being able to communicate that to a streaming platform, and also to just to yourself as well, is really amazing to see how many people have listened to you within a playlist and saved that track, or how many listeners have saved that track. It's a really, really incredible metric, and one that I know is very sort of important in terms of playlist discussions and things like that. So yeah, I would say any kind of KPIs that show real, authentic engagement is the dream. Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing how data can at the end give you so much information on how to move forward with your career. And even if you're like not maybe an artist, but like an actual professional in the music industry, you have so many insights. And I wanted to ask you, like, for like real like field experience also, like until what point can data kind of lie to you when you are like actually reading it every day?
That is very true. That is very true. Actually, there's a really interesting anecdote. I was looking at a lot of our. I like to look at data every day, every morning. Have a little browse. It's nice. I like it with my coffee. It's a lovely thing to do. And I started noticing something really weird happening over the last couple of weeks or so. A lot of our artists' followers started to go down, and that's really unusual. Like, why would someone unfollow an artist?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem right. Then I started looking at a few other of our artists and thought, oh, wow, that's really weird. Like, all of them, this is happening to all of them. What? So I got in contact with Spotify, and I thought, God, that must be a bug or something. Maybe it's my problem data-wise. And they actually said that they had decided that they were going to do an assessment of all users' followers, all artists' followers, and any profiles that were not active. There were a couple of other things as well, but the main one was that their profiles weren't active and they weren't active users. They were being removed. So it means that like that metric is true. It wasn't a bug in the data. It was actually something that Spotify had decided that they wanted to do, get rid of some deactivated user profiles. But I can imagine that having, quite a rippling effect on an artist, seeing that they lost, 50 followers yesterday for no reason whatsoever in their eyes. So I definitely think, it's all about transparency as well. And I think that sometimes people think that if you hold things back, you're holding holding some kind of power. That should never be the truth, you know. Everyone should be sharing data and case studies and stories. That's why I love platforms like Chartmetric. Of course, it's very, very expensive, but it is a great investment in the music industry. Not necessarily like maybe for artists, but you know, it's an investment in the music industry, and it's such a transparent tool. And I really appreciate that. I think there are some, you know, major labels and distributing services that, you know, create these immaculate database tools that do all of this amazing stuff, and you know, they only share it with a really small amount of people because they think that, you know, we know knowledge is power. But I think there is a time when data can't do everything. You know, there's a reason why A&Rs are still in their role. It's because you know, people know what they're talking about, and there's passion and there's discovery. I think data can inform our decisions, not dictate them.
100%, 100%. And I wanted to know about translating momentum that is happening outside of the DSPs, more specifically, let's say TikTok, into the DSPs. So I read in one of the Musical.ly sandbox that for Ashnikko that you guys were part of, for the Daisy track, there was this Beats Daisy Challenge hashtag, right? And it was to give fans the opportunity to be featured on one of Ashnikko's official videos. And the hashtag went astronomical. It had like 10 billion views, and it had like super great support from the editorial team on the DSPs. So the question is like, how is the process of sizing the opportunity that is happening, for instance, in this case, TikTok, and bringing it to the streaming platforms to boost the editorial support?
Yes, that's a great question. I also think two parts to that one. I would say like a great. This is like I'm so glad you brought Ashnikko into this, because she's such an incredible example of being authentic and going to the beat of your own drum, and she was so sure of like who she wanted to be, what she wanted to put out, and that this was it for her. She is Ashnikko. So it, you know, it was a really, really difficult journey with Ash. You know, we released her first EP in 2019, I believe. Or that's the first EP that I worked on. I didn't get a single playlist. No one would playlist her. They didn't understand the music. And sometimes that's where your fans and social media and, you know, this thing of making your profile like your stage, that's where that comes in completely. Editors didn't get it. Streaming platforms just didn't know where to fit her in a genre place. So it became all about the fans. And now you'll see that with everything Ashnikko does, there will always be a fan element. Whether it's, you know, as you say, that the kind of Beats by Dre, getting the fans involved in that. Whether it's at the moment, she's got a challenge on TikTok around anti-Valentine's Day. It's a duet challenge, asking fans on TikTok to duet with her. There are kind of that is her thing, because her fans really, really brought her to where she is. And of course the playlisting came, and really it was after Stupid, Stupid, which kind of went viral on TikTok and had, you know, Miley Cyrus and everyone kind of getting involved in that trend. After that, it became, you know, really apparent that maybe that was the single that people were, you know, really vibing with. Let's create a video for it. Let's create a lyric video for it. Let's get YouTube involved in that. So it's kind of about, you know, finding your place as well. Like the kind of playlisting that Ashnikko used to get on Spotify was very, very minimal, but there were places that people listened regularly and they added songs to their playlist and things like that. So I would say that, you know, that Beats by Dre, that was like that was probably around a breaking point. But I'm telling you, I would wake up on a Friday and have not one playlist for Ashnikko. It was all about her fans. It was all about the fans. And from the fans became this TikTok space that was really young and edgy, and you could have blue hair and paint yourself pink and sing Ashnikko songs. It became a really safe and authentic place. And I think from that, as much as streaming platforms probably look at TikTok and think, oh God, it's such a fad or something like that, it's a great way of understanding how far your music is spreading and how much people are creatively getting involved with it. It's kind of on streaming platforms as well to keep their ears on the ground and their finger on the pulse to see what's cool and what's happening. And maybe sometimes they get it wrong in the first instance. But yeah, I would say it probably changes a lot depending on the kind of artist that you are. But Ashnikko is a great example of someone that stayed very true to who they are, consistently released music that was for the fans, and basically, put themselves creatively in the very epicenter of that fandom. There's a lot of I love the idea of creating lots of different content as well, whether it's on TikTok or creating a collaborative playlist on Spotify for you and your fans, or whether it's, using those TikTok trends as, say if you had a TikTok, like the Beats by Dre, we put some of those TikTok compilations as her canvas on Spotify. So then millions of people from TikTok are like, oh my God, did I get featured on the canvas? Did I make it? Loads of people are rushing over there. They're listening to the song so that they can see the canvas. They're saving the song to make sure they can come back and see if they make it next week. And that in itself is activity that Spotify can see some lights dinging. Oh my goodness, what's happening on Ashnikko's profile? Certain things like that are the win. And also, using data, Ashnikko is US, Latvian. She has like a lot of different, cultures coming around her. But I was trying to break her from the UK. That's really difficult. Actually using data to find out where your fans are. She was absolutely booming in the US, obviously. She has an American accent. It's very American. It's, she had big American features like young baby Kate. It was an American thing. So it was becoming increasingly more difficult for me to come in, big and brass, saying that this is, this needs to be added to UK editorial, when maybe it just needed a little ad in a Feeling Myself playlist or in the US. So yeah, I think it's also about using the data to find out where the fans are and go from there. If TikTok's your thing, go with it, but just make sure you're creating that circle, and you're bringing people over as creatively and inventively as you can.
This is great, and it shows that at the end, music is kind of the fuel of the industry. Like if you have a really amazing song and a really amazing community, then it will, for obvious reasons, will transport into building a huge fan base and maybe just like become a superstar that she is right now.
And I love that. I love it when local talent like breaks out and becomes these kind of mainstream things. We're seeing it now with, obviously, these artists are absolutely massive, but someone like WizKid, that's someone that has been going for a very long time, is kind of at the forefront and like a OG in that space sonically. But, last year he had one of the biggest songs of the year with Thames. And not only that, Justin Bieber decided to jump on it. Yeah. These things happen, but he had such a fan base in this space, and has been going for so long that there was already the hype there, the organic love for that. And it just took a brand new kind of stage when someone like Justin Bieber decides that, that sound is in, that sound is cool and current, and I could add something to that. That's, it's just really, really exciting.
Yeah, and you were just saying that, for example, like at first you were pitching her songs, and like the editorial team was like maybe not like, I'm hesitating about this, or I don't really know how to place it. So, and it comes to mind that sometimes we kind of struggle differentiating between like artists or music and then like the music business, the music industry itself, because it's sometimes like, even though it works together, it sometimes kind of like thinks in different ways. So that's why, for example, like I was reading an article the other day, and I saw some discontent around it, about the fact that the CEO of Universal was earning like a lot of money compared to all songwriters together from 2021 and 2019, I think.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, so like, you know, an impressive quantity, you know. And I wanted to ask you, like, because this shows how kind of uneven can be the balance when it comes to income that streamings or like songwriters royalties are generating. Because there are now, we have been talking about in this podcast about different kind of models, like user-centric model, artist-centric model. So I wanted to ask, with your experience, like, do you think that implementing a different model can really make a difference, or not really, when it comes to kind of make this balance a little bit more even among artists and business executives, for example?
That's such an interesting question. And, you know, it's actually something that I really grapple with all the time in my job, as like being a part of streaming. And, you know, I see the hard work that goes in, either whether it's me and my team, or, you know, it's me and my artists. And like and the fact that Spotify is like this holy grail when they are the worst paying for artists. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so crazy. For me, it's kind of crazy that they've been put into up on this massive pedestal. Yet we're still kind of having arguments about, you know, the idea of even songwriters and producers getting the credits that they deserve on platform, as well as, you know, the rubbish pay of sort of pay per stream. I would say that this is absolutely a time to be looking at artist-centric and artist-focused models of business. 100%. I have seen so many different aspects of this business, from like pure independent to the major of the major of the majors. And then, you know, working at somewhere like Venice of Q&A now, I would say that now I'm in a place where I feel the thing that comes first for our business is artists, is music, is what they want to do and what they want to say. And I've seen that happen. So many different examples already. I've only been in this job for 4 or 5 months. I've seen so many examples already of, you know, places or decisions that I know would be different if I was still in a major, whether that is release strategy and just the amount of releases, whether that's we had a really interesting song come into us at the beginning of this year called Don't Text Me When I'm Drunk by Stacey Ryan, and that was a song that had a very, very short but fast grow. It started on TikTok. It was an open verse challenge. You know, there were loads of submissions. It went quite viral. And one of the submissions went even more viral. And from that, within, I think, 7 days, the two that were on different sides of the US actually created the song, produced it, got it finished, and were ready to put it up on streaming platforms. By this time, about, you know, every A&R in the world had kind of been on this journey with them and seen this kind of play out. And they were getting a lot of heat from majors that wanted to sign the song. They wanted to obviously sign Stacey, but you could tell that fire had been created by this song. That's what they wanted. And for the team and for management, all they wanted to do was release it. The time was now. Like, the heat was on. The time was now. Like, let's do it. And, you know, Venice became the perfect platform for that, because, you know, we're a distributor, but we're artist-centered. So anything that we can do to create an artist vision, we will. So it became very easy. Our tool became very easy for Stacey and her team to just upload the track, get everything tagged, get everything ready, distribute it, get it up for people to listen to convert from TikTok over to streaming platforms, to actually start making some money for Stacey. And from then it became my job to basically help support that process as best I could, to fill in any gaps that I could, to tell this story to editors across the world, and to find the perfect playlist ecosystem to not only get the song to the best place it could, but for the artist to feel the benefits of that, for it to become an artist proposition. because no one wants a one-hit wonder. Everybody wants to create music, for the rest of their lives. So what were a couple of things we could do to kind of help with that? And for me, I just don't see that process happening the way it did at any other business, because we're artist-centered. And although majors are, they do keep the industry ticking along, from catalog to the investments that they put in new artists. They really do. But, they get paid for that. They get paid for that, and they get benefits of that. It's quite depressing to look at a New Music Friday and see how many of those artists are actually signed to a major label. So again, I also would say it's about education as well to artists, and that's how that artist-centered approach becomes, because it's not a business model. It's not a money-making kind of corporate business model. It's creative and it's authentic. So yeah, they're very, very different worlds, but there are also lots of different platforms. And even when we're talking about Ashnikko and her playlisting, that she couldn't get any playlisting, first of all. Also, these companies, whether they're majors or whether they're streaming platforms, are having to reinvent themselves to stay current, whether that's, podcasting becoming a thing, or video integration into app, or whether it's just, the vast amount of new playlisting that there is that's definitely connected to, viral hits, so TikTok. People have to stay current. I just think the old models are dying, and I'm so excited for that, because I think that means true independence for artists.
Absolutely. And I have loved that you have touched a little bit on like decision making with releases, because like that, I think that's not something that is very seen by the consumers or fans, but like decision making behind these huge releases might change like enormously the path they take. So, and you have working like huge projects with Coldplay, Gorillaz, Stereophonis, and getting #1 albums, platinum certifications. So I wanted to ask you, like, what have been the most quote unquote like profitable efforts or actions that you have made when working with DSPs that have marked the difference, like in these awesome releases?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really interesting question, because I don't think there's enough emphasis on the certain programs that DSPs have, for not only for independent artists, but for new artists and developing artists. I think they're really exciting. Like the whole Fresh Finds. Like I'm quite new to Fresh Finds, which is playlisting in an ecosystem and a space for independent artists on Spotify. I'm quite new to it because I've been very lucky enough to work with in the major label kind of sector. So I just think things like that. And I recently had an artist. The kind of opposite, the other side to that is Spotify's Radar, which I was very, very lucky enough to pitch and secure for Pink Pantheress. So I've done the pitch. I know what it consists of. I know what you need. And it was really interesting to kind of see what we got from that. That's still ongoing. It's a kind of a 12-month thing. But for me, it's like, it is so strange, because it shouldn't ever be about money. But I think the best thing about partnering with some of these companies is the money. Like independent artists want to stay independent because they want to own what they want, what they put out, what they create. But sometimes you see that people are signing to majors because they need the advance. They need to create content. They need money for videos. They need money for strategy. I think it's really exciting when you start seeing independent or underground artists partnering with certain platforms, like YouTube on the rise and things like that. Like I'm loving seeing these different kind of platforms come through with these packages that include a cross promotion of marketing and editorial and creative and all of these different things. I think it's so exciting. With Pink Pantheress, the first thing that we did was, the first thing that she absolutely adored was doing her photo shoot. She was, quite underground and wasn't really getting in front of the camera and things like that. And when we partnered with Spotify for their Radar campaign, the first thing we decided to do was like this photo shoot with an incredible creative team, which is also something that's exciting with working with these platforms, is the access that they have to a certain caliber of, you know, creatives. Yeah, creatives, exactly. It's really exciting. So, you know, we did that. And then from the photo shoot, we did like a mini documentary. And these documentaries were meant to be 20 minutes. And I think ours was 4. And that's just Pink Pantheress to a T. But that's my job, you know. Spotify want 15 minutes. My artist doesn't do that. So this is what we're going to do instead of that. And it's still going to be, you know, authentic and you know, amazing, but it's going to be, you know, for my artist and true to her. But yeah, I think the access to that kind of thing is just so amazing. So yeah, breakthrough programs, yeah, the certain marketing resources that you can get, the creative resources you can get, and just the network that it kind of opens up. Yeah, I think they're kind of the big things you can get for developing artists. And then obviously when it comes to major artists, oh my goodness, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Like anytime anyone lists some of the acts that I've worked with, I can't help but smiling, because my memory is just so, I've got such great memories of working with these artists and their management teams and DSP platforms to just be so creative. For example, with Coldplay, and the most, we did lots of different things. I was lucky enough to work 2 albums, Everyday Life in 2019 and Music of the Spheres in 2021. With Music of the Spheres, it was kind of interesting because we were going through a global pandemic. So some of the traditional marketing ploys that we would have done, we didn't necessarily do. So it was exciting to work with the Spotify team to kind of be creative and forward thinking with that. So we did these billboards like across the world, in major cities across the world. These billboards, the coordinates of where they would be were released as the canvas on the very first single from Music of the Spheres. So obviously that was a great way of getting engagement onto the single. From that, the coordinates were revealed, and people would either go on the Coldplay fan clubs or the forums, and people would decipher where the coordinates were, and then a group of fans would meet up and try and find the billboard. And the billboard would reveal it had, so we had lots of different alien languages in this album. It was very creative, which was fun to play with. But we had these alien languages, and then it would be like the lyrics to a song in the alien language, and then it would translate into English, and then it would flip onto the you know, like the release date for the song or something like that. So it's just about being really like creative as well. Like it's so much fun. I just had so much fun with it, and there's been loads of different acts where we've done yeah, some really, really cool stuff on streaming platforms for sure.
And I love the idea that you just said that one of the most important parts is to keep it true to the artist so they feel comfortable enough to start collaborating with other partners such as Spotify, Apple, you name it. You know, it's not that because they said we have to change how you are. In this case of Pink Panthers, it actually makes sense for her because that release, to help with it, it's an album that is very uncommon because it has 10 songs, but it's less than 20 minutes. And the songs are super short as well. So it's very her that you also defended her idea of how she is towards the communication with Spotify.
Yes, I would say that's probably the most important part of my job for sure, is protecting artists and their creativity. Sometimes I don't even need to speak to an artist to know that what a partner is suggesting is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Another great example is I loved working with an artist called Kano. He's an amazing rapper in the UK. He's kind of the cream of the crop, the best of the best. He's been going for a long time, and it's just, he's kind of noted as like one of the gods, you know, in UK rap and UK grime. We did an album called Hoodies All Summer. It was amazing, very critically acclaimed. It was nominated for a Mercury. I think we made it into I think we were 8 in the UK album charts. And one of the things that the Spotify, I hate that I keep talking about Spotify as well, but one of the things that Spotify wanted to do was a Spotify singles. They're so much fun, so much fun. And the big like kind of hook about a singles is that you do one original song and you do one cover.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that Spotify wanted to do this, and if we did do it, they were going to unlock quite a lot of marketing, and we were going to come up with a really great plan of how we were going to promote this album. So I knew that Kano did not do covers. That was like an official line. Kano doesn't do covers. It's just not his thing. He likes to create his own music. So that became like quite a difficult conversation to have. But it just became absolutely impossible for Spotify singles to be a conversation if we had to bend to the rules of that format. And I mean, if you have a look on it now on Kano's Spotify singles, there is not a cover to be seen. They are 2 original songs, but we did it with enough finesse and enough flex and creativity and reimagination that, you know, it felt like a cover, you know. He did one of his most famous songs, most iconic songs, P's and Q's, in the iconic Abbey Road studios. And then we did one of his recent singles from that album. But yeah, so it, you know, staying authentic to an artist is absolutely the fundamental goal and my role.
And now that we're talking about these streaming platforms and there are different initiatives that they have for artists, I recently was reading an article by Billboard that begged the question if streaming services are due for an upgrade, more in terms of how users are interacting with the music. So I want to know your take on how do you see streaming services evolving around the user interaction world in these times where we are talking about visual social immersion.
That's really interesting. I think that's a really, really interesting conversation, I think. And there's probably not one kind of infinite answer because things are so constantly changing, you know? Who would have thought that you could have a number 1 single because of a 30-second clip on a video platform? Who would have thought it? Not me, that's for sure. Not me. And the amount of artists that I've seen that have had so much trouble working through the normal system, I'll name drop an artist that I absolutely love. Her name is Rachel Chinoriri. She's someone that I've been working with for a short time, but I've been a fan of for a very long time. And she really, she made her startings at certain DSPs, but you know, it felt like TikTok was her space. She's such a legend, like she's so funny, and that doesn't necessarily translate into her music. So like I just think, you know, there's probably not a prescriptive model of where the industry is going to go, but I think the way in which we can jump from each one is very, very important. I think, you know, this idea of users having very low attention spans is something that's going to play into the future of, you know, music styles as well. You can see music is getting shorter, like actual singles and durations of songs are getting shorter. People don't really believe in an album anymore. And even like you say, when it is an album, it doesn't need to be, you know, 45 to 60 minutes. It can be a Pink Panther-esque 22 minutes. It's just the vast like amount of content that's coming out of people is just incredible. But in an amazing way, completely unmanageable through the industry. You know, I don't think there will I don't think I could pinpoint where the next thing's going to go, but I love the idea that artists are now jumping from one platform to another and just, you know, creating that wide circle of like content and community. It's all about community, and I find that's where you're seeing some of the updates come through. Like for YouTube and YouTube Music. Like that's a really, really exciting time for them. I loved when I saw Little Nas X on his most recent campaign release so much video content to do with singles. He was getting so much hate like on social media and things like that. And his retaliation was to be creative and create art and create YouTube content that kind of fit with that. Like, and by the way, all of these are streams, which is money. So yeah, like I love when Lil Nas X would do things like when he had I've completely forgotten what the song is called now, but his first single from Montero, Call Me By Your Name. He released all this video content that was like, call me by your name, but as if you were outside like the devil's lair, and it was just like muffled sounds of the track, but like all of that counts as streams. Do you know what I mean? I love that. It's so creative and inventive, and I love like also finding ways to use technology and creativity. Like we're working with an artist called Anna Sophia at the moment. Well, number one, let's not even get into NFTs and that. Let's not even go there right now. But we're working with an artist called Anna Sophia, and she is working with this creative / data company or tech company that creates visualizers that are based on the user that's like listening to the video. So if the video was being the video is being put out as an art track, as a visualizer on YouTube, because of the data and the tech within the within the video, it means that every single time that a new user watches that visualizer, they're going to see something different, and they're going to see something unique to them and unique to the song. I've never heard of anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
What? That's about creating a unique experience for the user at this point, you know? And we know that, you know, users love to have a memento of their unique experience with an artist, whether that's, you know, a gig band from their very first tour, or whether that's, you know, their bespoke visualizer for their track. Like, I just think there is I don't know where the future is. I actually don't know. And I can't tell you how ready I am for it and how excited I am for it. I think as long as you keep yourself free and transparent and just, you know, with that artist at the center of everything you do, we'll manage.
That's amazing. And thank you so much, Beth, for sharing. We are starting to land to the end of our interview. And we would like to ask you one last question before we do our proper closing. But like, what would you say are the new sounds that are starting to pop off or out from anywhere in the world and you think people should start paying attention to?
I would implore everybody to I might even give you guys a couple of playlists that I'm listening to at the moment.
Please do.
Yes. Please.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I there are a couple of playlists at the moment. There's one called Dirty December. It was curated by an amazing editor at Spotify in the UK. His name is Joel. He's an absolute legend. And he has just basically completely amplified the sounds that are coming out of Africa at the moment, whether that's Amapiano, whether that's Afro beats, whether that's Alte, whether that's, you know, there are just the sounds and the culture that is finally like connecting and landing and being amplified, especially in the UK, is like an absolute blessing to my ears. So there's a playlist and like an ecosystem of playlists that are promoting like the OGs and the up and coming in kind of Afrobeat and Amapiano, and yeah, I'm all over that.
That's Dale, do you have go, Jorge?
No.
Please.
I was just gonna say that I wanted to circle back to what you were saying at the very first beginning about the different initiatives an artist is gonna have, because that also gives their audience different hints of how they are creatively, how they are also a little bit personally, and how they are like, hey, look at these that I created. Welcome to my world. and be part of it. If you
Yeah.
like it, if you are in, like, come in, go ahead, go crazy. If not, you definitely would know, because we recently have an interview with an agency, Animal, shout out to those guys, is that you definitely have to create your persona where people can actually determine if they like you or not. And that's cool because you have your vision, you have your sound, you have your looks. So people will definitely know, okay, I like you, I follow you, or I just don't, and pass to the next artist. You know, that is perfectly okay.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I just think every single DSP has their pros and cons and their like niche, you know? Like I've not really spoken a lot about Amazon or Amazon Music and Alexa, but wow, like
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing. Like obviously that's a very, for me, or I would say, an Alexa listener is probably a very passive listener. They're not someone that's necessarily discovering new music, but you're now getting into people's homes. You're getting into people's daily life, you know? So yeah, I would just say that being just be authentic and surround yourself with a team that gets you and understands you and can educate you and empower you. You know, that so many people come up to me and say, how do I get onto New Music Friday, and how do I get into how do I get a playlist cover? I say, you know what? That doesn't even need to be a goal for you right now. Let's break it all the way down. Why are you doing what you're doing? Who do you want to listen to this music? What's a story that needs to be told? And I will tell you how it is. I'm gonna help. And to be honest, I think that's the most important thing about artistry and working with these DSPs. Be authentic. Find the right team. Find the right following, and it will work. It doesn't need to be a number one to work either, you know? I was at a really interesting conference recently where it kind of said, 5,000 fans can make a career. And that's true. Connecting with your fans is just, it is the most authentic way to grow a sustainable business, you know? And all of these different platforms, of course, will elevate and amplify, and it will come. But the best thing and the most important thing that you can do is just keep being you. Keep being the best artist that you can be, as authentically as you can.
Beautiful message, Beth. Well, guys, I think Beth deserves a round of applause. This was amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for dropping all those gems, Beth. That was, even like as we just talked, Zoom kicked you out because of dropping so many gems. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, absolutely. I've had a brilliant time. And if anyone wants any advice that's listening to this podcast on, the best pitch to do or to get the links to the portals, come and find me. I'll drop my social medias and things like that, and people reach out. I'm here to help.
Thank you, Beth. Anything else you want to plug?
Venice Music.
Absolutely. Check it out, guys. Beth, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye.
Un placer.
Hey, si ya llegaste hasta acá, muchas gracias por escucharnos. No te olvides de seguirnos en Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora o la plataforma digital que sea de tu preferencia. Si te gustó el capítulo, si te gusta el podcast, no olvides recomendarnos a tu grupo de amigos, colegas. Esa es la mejor manera y la manera más orgánica de que sigamos creciendo esta comunidad. También nos puedes encontrar en Instagram, Facebook, YouTube como 8000 kilómetros podcast, y cualquier comentario, duda, sugerencia para mejorar el podcast es más que bienvenida. Nos vemos en el siguiente episodio.